Hey there, folks. It's Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation, back with another weekly coach session every Wednesday during the week, around 12 o'clock, give or take, if my puppies need to go out one more time because the UPS driver showed up. I come in and talk about a topic relevant to you, to endurance athletes who are looking to be your personal best, whether that's triathlon, whether that's ultra running, whether that's cycling. And the idea being that being your personal best is a function of not only knowing yourself, but also being able to communicate with others. And part of what my job here for you is to communicate lessons learned out from the team. We have a community inside Endurance Nation of over 500 athletes who collaborate online, who share information, who help one another, whether it's just, with the kudos or with sharing information back out again, that really becomes helpful moving forward as an athlete. Our goal essentially is to take you and just move you several steps down the line so you can avoid all the mistakes that we made. If we were playing chutes and ladders, I'm trying to send you right to the top. Right, we'll avoid all those obstacles, and saving that time really matters. For most people in endurance sports, you generally have somewhere between 3 and 5 years at a given sport, kind of hitting it hardcore where you're into it. And if you're going to spend 3 of those years really not getting it right, that could be kind of frustrating right at the end of the day. So let's put you on the fast track. And you can learn more about that at endurancenation.us. Look at the how we work section or anything else, or just reach out using the chat bot. Let me know. So this week, I'm talking to you a little bit about the power of positivity. And this, I think, is a really important aspect to becoming a better at anything, really better athlete for sure. But whether it's a better coworker or a better spouse or anything, is this power of positivity concept. I know it sounds a little wishy-washy, so I'll kind of break it down for you as best I can. But the perspective where I'm coming from is essentially that the majority of us, when we're analyzing our own performances, when we're analyzing our own progress, what we end up doing is identifying all the spaces in our year or in a week or in a particular session where things didn't work, right? And that's a really tough spot to be. So if I pull out my handy little whiteboard for you guys, right? If we were just to say like, hey, here's a month of training, like what's all the stuff that I've done, right? And people always get these charts and graphs all the time, and you could see like, oh man, I did all these great workouts, right? Ever, and then you've got something like that, right? Right, and you do that, right? And you say, okay, what's going on? You look at this, right? It's like, oh my goodness, what's happening? You're sitting down, you're saying, am I really doing well? Am I doing the right thing? I don't know. Something went wrong 4 times in this block. What's wrong? Right? People want to know what's just wrong with these 4 times. And really, at the end of the day, what's happening is we are missing out on capturing all of the net positives that have happened in our training, right? Why? Because we are hardwired as human beings, to focus on those elements where things are not working right, where things are going wrong. And I'm not saying that's not important. It is important, but it's important to a certain degree. It's also important on the inverse side to celebrate your wins. By wins, it could be something like a big workout, a breakthrough session. It could be something as small as, hey, I just got out the door today, like a big success, right? Yesterday, didn't get outside. Today, got outside, win. Right? But celebrating these positive steps, these positive effects, is actually a really important piece of who you are as an athlete in terms of your emotional side. We talk a lot about the data side. And when you go over and you look at these charts and stuff like that, all of these charts here, they're full of data. If I started showing you colors and pictures, you'd probably start shaking a little bit because those charts, and here you are looking at a Facebook video saying, I'm missing out on my workout today right now. I'm not doing exercise right now. If I can only be training and talking to Coach Patrick at the same time, that'd be great. And that's sort of a natural feeling, this feeling of loss, right? So what we deal with as humans in general is this concept of loss aversion, which is that we don't want to lose this thing. So we build up our training, we build up consistency, we build up our run streak, and the last thing that we want to do is let it go, right? So in many cases, the tapering period, let's look at this as a great example, right? I think the taper is kind of the perfect way to sort of sum up what this means. When I think about it, and I'll go back to my chart for you guys here. When I think about what the taper means for people, essentially all year long, we've been building up our fitness, right? And we've been moving, for a couple of months, looking at things, and we're saying, oh my goodness, we are totally ready to train. Those of you who are just listening in, I'm just drawing a nice healthy chart of time and training stress going up. We are super happy. We're ready to race. We've never seen numbers like this, or we haven't seen numbers like this probably since, I don't know, sometimes since like last year. If we went back all the way to last year, we'd say, oh man, I was this fit last year, this time, things are looking good. Well, what happens when it gets time to taper, right? Well, when we get to taper time, all of a sudden, these numbers start to drop. We've got to let them drop because we need to recover. We need to absorb work. But when we start letting go of this momentum that we've built, we just sort of naturally turn to that negative side and say, oh my goodness, I'm missing workouts. I normally ride 4 hours on the weekend. I'm only riding 2 hours, right? I normally spend this much time training. I'm only spending this much time training. And athletes really struggle with this concept. Of course, tapering is critical. Tapering is where we build the strength, we consolidate our fitness, we prepare ourselves physically and mentally to go beyond on race day, right? So on race day, we're not just expecting you to do what you did in training. Side tip to all of you. One of my least favorite things that people say about endurance racing is that, race day is just like training, except there's fans and catering. No, race day is not like training. If your race day is just like your training, either you're training like all wrong, or you're racing all wrong. One of those two things has to be true. Race day is about performance. Race day is about work. In order for us to get ready to be in a position where we can actually execute and be successful, we've got to dial this training fatigue number down. It's got to come down, right? It's going to come down as we go. And then when race day hits and we finally hit that sort of magical like race day, piece here, we say, oh my goodness, when we hit this magical race day piece, all of a sudden, the work and everything goes skyrocketing for that single session before we drop down, and then we get into sort of that recovery mode, right? So when we think about that process, this area right here, and for those of you who are watching me right now here on Facebook, I'm going to highlight it in yellow for you. That area right there, that is the intersection where that negativity and that negative mindset really takes hold, where people start saying, this is what I'm losing. I'm losing my numbers. I'm losing my mileage. I'm losing my fitness. And people really struggle. And that's the place where things more often than not go wrong. This is where people will start to say, I'm just not sure if I really am strong enough. I'm going to do one more session on the bike or one more session on the run, or maybe I'll just do one more combined session, or, I really don't need that third day off this week. I'm going to do an extra session. And that period of time, if we expand that out in terms of timeline for your year, if we were to have like another data graph here, which does not exist in the world, but it would be interesting to see sort of as an overlay, if this was our sort of like decision success chart, right? We said, hey, how does your decision success map to your training success? And we would find that your ability to make decisions declines rapidly, similarly to your fitness, right? In other words, the more tired you get, the more wedded to the numbers you get, the more you don't want to let go of those numbers. Your ability to make informed, objective decisions about yourself is gone. It's not there anymore. And athletes really, really, really struggle with it. The concept of rest being something that's critical for performance is often lost on endurance athletes who build momentum across a year through consistency on a daily or multi-times daily basis, right? And when we think about that and we go back up above to this chart where we start focusing on the negative side of things and the workout sessions that we've missed, the challenge that becomes with this is we're only trying to fix things that aren't working. And that's an admirable goal, right? We absolutely want to focus on things that are not working, right? So for example, if I want to swim on Mondays on my day, but Mondays just for whatever reason, work, life, pool situation, I just cannot get to the pool. It's not happening. I need to fix that over time. So I can look at that and say, that's not working. I need to fix that thing that's not working. When I focus in on a week where I've had, say, 10 training sessions or 10 hours of training, and I've got one session that I'm just obsessed about and trying to fix, what I'm neglecting is looking at the positive side of how things are working across the year, across the week, and how I can improve it. And the reason why that's critical is that as endurance athletes, you have kind of two options. Well, more than that. But really, if we think about it, if we sort of draw out the two extreme poles, you've got two options. You can fix the things that aren't working. You can improve your weaknesses. Or we can focus on the things that are working. We can improve your strengths. And as an endurance athlete, of course, we're trying to improve you across the board and give you competency in all disciplines and all manners of racing, because racing is about pacing and nutrition and execution and resiliency, mental acuity, all of those pieces, right? We want to develop all of those different core areas of your training persona. But at the same time, when we race, we play to your strengths. And when you're training, we also play to your strengths. Right? And so we need to celebrate those strengths and find places to still optimize them as well. So if you only have one bucket of mental energy to take a look at your week, which typically happens on Sundays inside Endurance Nation when we have our little reminder check-in button for you, when you go ahead and do that check-in, if all you're doing is telling me about the things that aren't going well, then we're not really spending any time, any cycles, any energy on taking the things that are going well and continuing to optimize them. Let's take an example of someone who's new to cycling, but is a competent runner. As you're spending time cycling, you're reducing your training time running because you need to spend time on the bike. Well, what happens often for people who come from a running background or even just a single sport, high level of engagement background, taking time away from that and spending it in a secondary discipline, super empowering, right? Like, not only do you kind of free up your mental focus from the run and the intensity around it because you've given yourself permission to explore another sport, but often the cross training exposure is fantastic for your overall development in any single sport. So while this athlete who's a runner who's exploring the bike is spending 25% of her time on the bike and doing a little bit less running, what she's not appreciating is that the run numbers are actually getting better, right? Her weekend runs are getting better. The end of her long runs are getting better. The tempo runs 5 seconds faster per mile. All of that's possible because she's created space for it by putting something else in there. But since she's only really focused on the bike and focused on the challenges she's having with the bike and what's wrong and what's not going well and where she's struggling, she's not capturing the positive gains that she's made just through the shuffling of her schedule across the week, right? Or across this block of her training. So as you're thinking about how you go through your season, right? You're saying, okay, Coach Patrick, I get it. I got a problem just like everyone else. I'm focusing on the negative side of my training or my racing. I'm not focused on the positives. How do I create conditions through which I can be positive, right? So this is a pretty straightforward way to do it. And I definitely recommend implementing it because it's easy. And it's also kind of fun. And it takes some of the rote work around data and downloading, right? Like, start your run, stop your run, save your run, look at your run, right? That's all sort of like this sort of chug process, which just doesn't and sort of allow for a lot of creativity when you take this awesome run when you saw all the stuff and it just looks like a bunch of lines and bar graphs, right? So what I recommend doing is taking a page out of something a little less training like, and we have something here inside the McCran household that we call the Awesome Jar. And that is a jar, it's a little mason jar that we leave on our dining room table. And inside the Awesome Jar just goes like random thoughts. Like when something goes well, just go over to the Awesome Jar and we just jot it down on a piece of paper and we throw it in the jar. Okay. So you just jot it down. Like, today this worked, today that worked, whatever it is, right? We just have a good moment. You get in the habit of being like, I'm going to capture this. Like, this was awesome. And it could be anything, right? So if we're thinking from a workout perspective, you could talk about like a part of your run where you felt really good, or something that worked well for you when you were doing your long training session that was different than before, right? Or maybe you've always done this route and it felt slower, but this week you felt faster. What are the different elements about it? Maybe the weather's finally turned. That's a win, right? All of those things. So capturing some of those great upside pieces, and then put those elements inside your Awesome Jar. So we do it on Post-it notes to save them, fold them up, stick them in there. And then once a week, or in your case as an athlete, since it's just you and perhaps the daily awesome is maybe a little less frequent as a family of four, you check it at the end of the month. And you can go into the Awesome Jar and pull it out, or if you've got a file on your computer or a note somewhere that you keep it, you can pull that out and then take a look at all the awesome things. And this has a couple really important effects for you. One, it brings you back to the positives that you had before, right? So it brings you back to a place where you can say, that really did work on the second Saturday of the month. I forgot about it. I'm in the first week of the first next month, but I really forgot about this. And here I am. And this is awesome. Like, I'm capturing this and this is fantastic. And it brings you back to celebrate that positive. Second, those positives that you're sort of pulling out like a lottery ticket, they also help cross out some of those negative pieces, those pieces that are kind of taking your attention away from what you need. And also, placing, sort of inordinate emphasis on things that are not working versus things that are working. So you can almost strike them out. So if you had a really crappy week is a great time to pull out the Awesome Jar and just see what is working for your training, right? So capture some of those positives. Again, it doesn't have to be in a sort of really functionally deliberate manner, but you can keep a space, a whiteboard, a piece of paper, somewhere where you do your training, or you keep your training gear, tape it to the wall, use a whiteboard. Again, you can have a note on your phone if you want, where you can just add it to a reminder list if you're like super tech savvy person, whatever it is, but have it in a place where you can access it, when your mind is in and around your training, wherever you find yourself geographically thinking about your training, have that list there and then drop those notes into it. That's a great way to start out, just kind of building the muscle of the positives. Another way to do it is to exit your training sessions and sort of have a debrief session, just as you debrief your body through like stretching and recovery. That's to walk through the process of, what worked and what didn't work. And I always start out with what worked. You want to go to the didn't work. Oh, my knee was bothering me at mile 2. And I can't believe that dog chased me down the street. Like, when are they going to get an electric fence for that dog, or whatever they need to do? Are they going to train that dog, right? Can't believe I got 3 phone calls. I can't believe I got to answer this phone call right now here during my recovery session. And we're focused again on that negative. So instead, we always start off with what worked and then what didn't work. So what was good out of this session? Just capture it. Even if you just run through that list pretty quickly, even if it's something that you kind of go through almost every time you run, because maybe you're in just a good run space right now, for example, you're burning that pathway in. You're burning that habit in of saying, how do I capture these positives and how do I turn it forward? And this becomes important overall from a race day perspective because of your athletic psyche. When things do get tough in these longer sessions, or as an endurance athlete in your longer races, our mind has to start dissecting what's happening. And if you have constantly trained it over time through training, just reflexively indulging that negative mindset and saying, what's wrong with this picture, you are going to default to that negative picture there on race day as well. So if you're at like mile 30 of this crazy, 50-mile run, and it's getting hot and you're getting low on fluids and you're not feeling great, you're not sure what to do, your mind's going to go to that negative side naturally, unless you've built in something positive. Hey, we've gotten to mile 30 so far. Hey, my bladder's of fluid is half full, not half empty. It's half full. I'm only this far from the next aid station. I'm strong enough to do it. I've got the energy. I can be smarter. That's the positive mindset. And that doesn't just happen on race day. That doesn't just happen when things get tough. We have to cultivate it. And we cultivate that positive mindset by taking small micro actions, whether it's across a month with the Awesome Jar, whether it's a little more frequently with that post-workout debrief, that encourages you on a frequent basis to capture the positive sides and burn those pathways so that when things do get tough, you can turn around and you're not only your worst enemy, you're also your best friend as you have to go through this. And at least developing, if you've got that devil on your exercise shoulder on the one side, at least developing the competency to have that training angel on the other, so we can have that duality of this is what's working versus this is what's not working. Again, that negative mindset, it's partly ingrained in who we are. It's how we learn to, outrun dinosaurs, if you will. And so when we think about how things work, there's a reason why we have that negative mindset, but it's not always your best friend. So as I work with athletes and do phone calls and consults, when I work with other business owners as well, it's amazing to me how everybody wants to start with what's wrong right away, as opposed to talk about what's going well. You'd be amazed at just how positive your day can be if you start off with what's going well, right? Even if you're talking to your doctor, talking to a coworker, start off with what's good before you get to what's bad. Totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. A little bit of positivity goes a long way to setting the tone for the rest of your day, not just from a workout perspective, but just overall as well. So I apologize for the slightly wishy-washy topic this week, but having had multiple conversations with folks in the last month or so, as things are getting better, as the weather is turning, as races are coming back, as masks are slowly coming off and we are safer, it's hard to continue to hear that negative mindset. And I don't think people realize that part of what holding them back isn't their capacity to train. It isn't their ability to buy stuff or to block out time or to push through the pain. It's that they're just not looking at things from that positive side and highlighting all the good work that they're doing as a momentum builder for more good work. Awesome. Okay, very cool. Well, I know I got some folks out there watching. If you have questions for me about your training or just about some of this mindset element as well, I'm happy to talk to you about it right now. You can go ahead and type your questions right into the box there, and I'll be happy to answer them. Or just comments or feedback as well. Happy to take it. And remember, just as a reminder, every Wednesday I'm here doing these talks, and you can find them on Facebook.com/Endurance Nation under the events tab. It tells you every week what I'll be talking about, so you know. When I leave this talk, I head over to the team where I do a weekly office hours chat with the folks on the team, an opportunity for our athletes to connect with me directly and get questions answered and plan for next events and camps. Or in the case of where we are right now, some folks have raced and they've got a plan to race again. Some lucky Kona qualifiers. Other folks have had races moved. Other folks have new opportunities for getting outside, whether it's training camps, our training camps that we have over at Mile18Inc.com, like our gravel camp or our Phoenix Challenge, which is happening in 2 weeks. Oh my God, T-minus 10 days to a double century ride in Front Royal, Virginia on Skyline Drive. Super excited. You can learn more about that at WeRideWeRise.com. So trying to put all those pieces of the puzzle together. So I think it's really important that as you're managing your year and managing this emergence, almost halfway point, right? It's the 6 on the dial, June. It's important that we kind of stay on that positive side and continue to cultivate that energy. All right, here, I'm just going to hang out for a second and see if anyone has anything they want to add. as a recap here, I've got these images up on the screen from before, talking about searching through the negativity side. And then also, trying to figure out what people were really, sort of into when they were, going through, what it means to sort of struggle with this in the taper, and really struggling with that taper period here. These two charts for my day, my two awesome drawings for the day. I know you guys are here for the artwork for sure, which is awesome. All right. So next week, I will say Wednesday is my last day in the office because I am heading out to go to Virginia for the Phoenix Challenge ride. So you can follow us on Facebook and get updates there as well. Hey, awesome. Hey, got a little comment here from Vic. Always good to see you, brother. Awesome. I'm going to pull it up here on the dial, if you will. All right. This is such great perspective, Vic, and I really appreciate it. I think you're right. And this is a great opportunity for it, right? We should be super happy, given what happened over the last 18 months. Like, sure, this session's not going well. Things are tough. Things are hard. But hey, man, we are in the pool. We are together and we are swimming again. I think it's super hard. I find this mindset sets in a lot, especially at the beginning of the season. People, start the beginning of the year with last year's fitness or last year's mental strength ready, but their body is not ready for it. We don't have that alignment yet. So people say, I went for a run, but it was so slow. And I say, but your run was actually pretty good. I know it was slow. And I look back to this time last year, you were faster than you were last year, but you're slower than you were at the end of last year when you were peaked and tapered and, shaved and ready to rock it, super motivated, rock music pumping through the ears. Well, in that case, you're not going to be the same. And that's okay. Right. So I think it's really important you stay that positive side. Vic, I'm not surprised. You're definitely, ready to bring the positivity to the table, which I think is so important. We all have those folks in our lives who just are super positive and positive first. And I think that's really important for us to cultivate that athletically as well. Just like with work, there's never an end to work. With training, there's always more training to be done. So let's enjoy what we have. Let's do the best that we can. And I think there's alignment between effort and emotion as well. If you're pumped up about your workout, you're going to do a great job. If you are just so down on yourself and just not into it or whatever, the odds of you having a good workout, pretty darn slim. Just going to put that out there. And I don't need a scientific study to back that up. We've all been there. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Again, I'll be back next Wednesday for my next session. You can learn more about that at facebook.com/Endurance Nation under the events tab. And then also we've got a lot of stuff going up on the blog lately and our newsletter as well. So if you're not part of our newsletter, which is endurancenation.us/newsletter. Definitely sign up for that. You get some of our insider stuff that's coming out, resources and updates, discounts as well. So definitely worth checking out as we have a few more caffeine-related sponsor inquiries happening beyond Caffeine Bullet, which is our newest sponsor, but some other hydration and coffee electrolyte-powered coffee, which I'll be bringing to the table in the next month or so for folks on the team. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a fantastic week. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, 12 noon, another coach video. See you.